now. We are back for another week. No rundown clock, no nothing this week. We're not taking any chances at all. I haven't even done an audio check. Nick Hooper, hello.
Paul, let's just roll with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I apologise for last week, and I'm hoping I may be on top of everything or going well. If not, we'll shut the show down and we'll just walk away and I'll start drinking again. It'll be fine. But no, frustrating show last week. We did touch on the Breeders' Crown. We had a pretty good in-depth look on there. I've got a couple other little points to go on there. But predominantly, Nick, this is a Talking Trotters show where we promote the Trotters. I reckon I've got to promote one horse to start the show off with, and you're not even aware of this. The Mighty Dichotomy did the right thing for you on Saturday night for the Breeders and got the chockies, mate.
He did. Jess Tubbs owns Dichotomy now and had it 6 win, broke 2 minutes, was really impressive. And Paul Graydon, who's had a bit of a rough trot with his health just recently, he texted me after the race and was thrilled to see that horse that we bred had another win. So well done, Jess. Well done, Herbie, who knocks up getting winners, and well done, Dichotomy.
He's been amazing, Herb, the last week. He had 3 on Saturday night, 2 on Sunday night at your home track, Cranbourne. He has had a massive, massive week, that's for sure.
He has. It's winners for Herbie are a regular occurrence. He's obviously having a purple patch even by his standards. You got to ride it when your luck is in, and his luck is in, and good. He does as many kilometres as anyone in the industry and deserves all the success that he gets.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's you're right. And any of these drivers that get out there and do it, it's pretty cool. I did do an interview with him at the start of the week, and he wanted to break 250, and I said, why not 300? Because I think he's at 150s halfway through the season, so he's like, oh no, I don't want to be over ambitious. And since then, I think he drove a treble that night at Shep. I don't know what he got at Bendigo. He definitely got 2 at Kilmore, 3 at Melton, 2 at Cranbourne as well. Like, it's a massive, massive week. The 300's achievable. And that's a big figure for a young man.
It is. Look, Nick probably will chat about it in a couple of weeks, and he won't have had a winner in that period of time. That's Murphy's Law, isn't it? But yeah, you knock over 15 in such a small amount of time. I can understand why he's setting realistic goals. You never know. He might need a break. He might get a little tired. He might need to just miss the odd meeting here or there. But he has a few more weeks like this last one, and he'll be part. He won't have to worry about whether it's 250 or 300 because he will have gone screaming past the 250 mark.
I'm a shocker for forgetting names, but the driver from Queensland who drove 400 winners last season, I still can't remember it. It'll come to me. Nathan Dawson. I asked him, did he set about going and driving 400? And he said he sort of did in the back of his mind when he realised he was having a pretty good season. He said, I'll concentrate on it and I'll have a crack at it. And then a horse called Not As Promised come along and he had to start travelling with it. And he's like, well, bugger the 400. I'm going to go and drive Not As Promised. He still achieved both. So there's sort of that juggling act, I think, isn't it? Like, he was like, well, I'm not worried about driving 400. I'm going to concentrate on just looking after this horse and enjoying the ride with this horse. Went to New Zealand, Victorian Trotters Derby, New South Wales, the whole box of dice. Had a hell of a run. And, I managed to get out there.
Yeah, no, he had an amazing year, and that stable did extremely well. And yes, he deserves all the success that he got.
Yeah, it does indeed. Now, we've got plenty of stuff to get across. Johnny Power's watching. He's my man. I'm just kept it back to basics, Johnny, but hopefully everything's fine. He'll keep an eye on me. There is no notes. We did no notes. Derek Delaney's watching. We'll give Derek a run in a sec. That's for sure. These are me last week's notes. We missed that many things on last week, so I do actually have some notes. We've got plenty to get through. Derek Delaney's watching from the Vincent Delaney Memorial. Nick, myself, and Hughesy are jumping on the Big Bird tomorrow afternoon. Looking really forward to getting across there. I don't know. I'm not sure if you've been there or not, but international racing in England, it's exciting. It's an exciting time of year. They race all the time, but I'm really looking forward to getting across there.
Yes, I've heard of others head across from from our part of the world, and only heard good reports. So I'm sure you're going to have a great time. I have been fortunate enough in years gone by to see some harness racing in the UK at Wolverhampton and at Tur Prince up in the north of Wales. And there's a little story with that. At the time, I had horses trained by Dick Lee, the one of our greatest trainers of all time, especially of a trotter. And went up to the track at Tur Prince. There was no racing, walked around. Of course, the racetrack caretaker goes, hang on, what's this clown doing walking around? The place comes up and says, can I help you? And I say, oh, yes, I'm a harness racing fan from Australia. Just thought I'd have a look at the track. And the guy says, he said, you got horses? I said, yeah. He said, who trains them? And I said, oh, Dick Lee, he's training my horse at the moment. He says, come with me. And he grabbed a set of keys, wandered into the grandstand, opened up the door, turned on a couple of lights, walked me inside and turned me around. And there, sitting up above the door in a big frame, was a picture of Dick Lee winning on Rufus Youngblood. And because Dick had spent a lot of his time up there, was incredibly well-known, loved, as well, everyone loves Dick. And yes, he was revered by the locals there, and his success in Australia subsequent to that time. And this event that I'm recounting goes back probably 20 years. So, so I got a good old surprise when there was a photo of Dick and Rufus at Tur Prince.
It's actually quite interesting. I don't know if Derek, he said he thinks, oh, hang on, he's written another one. We had it held at Tur Prince 3 years ago, last 3 years, or maybe the last 3 years it's been at Tur Prince, actually. Might have been where they've actually ran that. It's actually quite interesting because I interviewed Dick about that, and he was a ranger at the showgrounds, which was almost, I think, track attendant was a rough, what it was called, but he was a ranger. And he had no idea what he was in for, and they put him on top of a boat. I think he took 16 horses with him or something along those lines. One of them, unfortunately, didn't make it, but the rest of them made it there, and he campaigned and loved every minute of it. I think the person that did the next trip was a gentleman called Ray Green. Now, both champion horsemen, champion trainers, have a really unique little way about themselves as well. Like, they're both cheeky, sort of precocious guys. You can imagine the influence they've had on the English and Wales and that over there as far as trainers go. They'll be thinking these guys at Australia and New Zealand are a little bit precocious, maybe might be the best way to put it. But both great horsemen too, and the stories that they can tell afterwards is just amazing.
Absolutely. I took great pleasure in when I got back from that trip telling Dick that his photo was above the door. My recollection is that he wasn't aware of that and was tickled pink by it when I told him. That was just a nice little moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully everything's in order for Derek, for myself and Mark Hughes to come. You'll have us all sorted out. I've got no doubt about that, and really looking forward to it. And we'll be doing plenty of interviews. Interesting little side note, and as I said, this is a trotting show, so we can say Dick Lee, better known for Trotters. His best horse was a pacer. It's a funny thing, isn't it?
Yes, it's that's the great irony, isn't it? But he had some good horses in the day. I had a little mare called Faraday Gold that I raced with a group of friends, and she won a few with Dick. But it was the thrill for me was just being having a horse trained by such royalty as Dick Lee. He was, and still is a wonderful horseman, and was a great thrill to be involved with him.
Yep, absolutely, and they're actually staging it at Wolverhampton. So Derek will be well and truly ready to go. I don't know if there's a live feed or not. If there is, I'll make sure I can get it out there at least so people can experience it, because it's on the racetrack. I don't know if I was able. Don't have it. I can't show you. They had the mobile. They actually had the mobile. Derek sent me through a picture of the mobile last week, and it was just pretty amazing. I don't know if you saw that or not, but it is amazing. Rightio, biggest weekend, one of the biggest weekends anyway for the Trotters. in North America. It was the running of the Hambletonian, a brilliant race over there, time-honoured race. Has a few little implications to Australia to the actual day, but Carl managed to get the chockies in torrential rain, Nick. It was horrible to watch the race.
Yes, I think it's like any sport, isn't it? You want your big day to have some nice fine weather and get your big crowd. But yes, you could. It wasn't. Sometimes it's raining and you're not sure on TV. You were left in no doubt that it was raining. It was that heavy. So geez, they did well to just scarp around in a fraction over 151.
Yeah, and a little bit unusual for North American racing. Come off the pace. It was in the perfect spot for what we call it, but 1-1 with the favourite. Oh, he started the equal favourite out in front, almost free bowling, but he was under pressure a long way up TCI. He was in a fair bit of trouble, but Carl he's the real deal, and it was a pretty amazing training effort too, I think, from Nancy Tactor.
Yeah, the times for the race. Often North American races are upside down compared to ours, where the back half is quite often a little slower than the front half. But they ran the first half in 54.3, which no wonder the leaders were looking for petrol tickets rounding the turn. They ran home in 57 with the last quarter in 28.9 by my calculations for a 151.3. So it really was, last horse standing there at the end, given they went effectively sub 150 back for the first half of the mile.
That didn't work. I've got to do this. Hang on. I'm pushing buttons and I wasn't sure. Yeah, exactly. And you can see here some of these pictures about how actual wet it is there. You can't make that stuff up, can you? But that's like the crowd, the people afterwards, and they're absolutely horrendous. It was Yannick Gingar's first ever one, and it was pretty emotional scenes that you're able to see with him later on too, because he was actually crying with his wife or partner, presuming it's his wife, in the presentation. Before he even got asked a question, he was actually crying because he'd finally been able to achieve it.
Just goes to show that guys who have been around for as long at the top of the heap, for him, races like the Hambletonian are iconic, not just within our sport, but it's probably in North America the race that is known by, I'll call it the general population or the wider population outside of their sport. So it's that emotion, no surprise.
Yeah, no, it was great to see. I said there before about a few little things here in Australia. Jake Stockton reached out to me. I'm going to do some stuff. Of course, he's got Fast as the Wind standing this season. Kath McIntosh has also got King of the North. Now, the Oaks winner, Warrawee Michelle, who won the Hambletonian Oaks on the day for Aki Svenstedt, I can never get that name right. It should be easy to say. Has a few little implications back, of course, with King of the North being by Walner, and this horse here was by Walner as well. But Fast as the Wind is actually out of, so the mother of Warrawee Michelle and Fast as the Wind are brother-sister. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, so son of Cantab Hall coming to Australia, and he's going to be here in the flesh. So you've got to watch all of these races and get across all of them. And I think she was pretty dynamite. I can't remember what actual time she ran. I could cheat.
51.2. She went faster than the Hambletonian.
It was a bit drier.
That helps.
It was definitely a bit dry. Actually, here's a picture I wanted to get, but unfortunately it's not very big. I wonder why that's like that. Hang on a sec, Nick. You're just going to have to bear with me here because I've
no, that's all right. While you're doing that, in the Phillies event, Walner sired the Quinella and the fourth place. Tactical Landing, the sire of Carl, sired the third place getter Allegiant. Just interesting names there. Chapter 7 had a couple of runners in the Phillies event. Couple of Muscle Hills, but they were down the track in comparison. So, they're the names that you want to be at the top of the tree, and North America, they're the names that you need to be associated with at the moment. That can all change very quickly, of course.
Of course, Carl being by Tactical Landing, Tactical Approach standing for Alabar this season in the flesh. They're not quite on the way. I think, according to Jake, they'll be released about the 27th, 28th of August. So I don't think they're on their way here yet. I think they've got to do 3 weeks quarantine. There was a slight hold up, so a week later than normal for him to get out. But of course, he'll be on there. And, you know, Nancy Tactor, Tactical Landing Horse last year, Tactical Landing Horse this year. Like, there's a bit of symmetry. It's a cross that works. So that's also exciting for our bloodlines over here in Australia.
It is. It is. He's got an interesting pedigree. If you want to pop that up on the screen, there's on the dam side. Certainly, there are familiar names on the dam side, but they're not necessarily the most prominent of names. Hopefully that's coming up for everyone to be able to read. But Tactical Landing, of course, is a son of Muscle Hill, out of the great, a mare by the great Varenne.
Yep.
You probably don't get two better names in a stallion with Tactical Landing. But RC Royalty, the dam of Avalicious, Speed in Action, not necessarily names that you see at the top of the tree, but you dig a little deeper and you see familiar names. So, not quite what you call an outcross stallion, but some names there that you don't see every day of the week.
No, and I was just looking there, Andon. You don't see that a lot in US stallions coming out here that often now. Anyway, I haven't seen it for a little while in a horse from there. A horse from Australia and New Zealand, you see it right through there, broodmares and stallions. So, yeah, that is a little bit interesting. Actually, you've got Speedy Scott, you've got all the Valley Victories, you've got, you know, all the names that you want. As you said, it's just a little bit different. It's a little bit back on the on that side.
Yeah, and of course, Tactical Landing second dam is by Pine Chip, who is by Andon. So Carl has two serves of Andon back in the the fifth and fourth generation. So winners can come from anywhere, and no doubt, you know, the dam was more than handy going 53-2 and winning a couple of 100,000, and the Grand Dam won 165,000. So there's certainly some quality in the family.
We've got some trotting royalty watching. Sean McNulty, who's the Oracle. If you have any issues at all, you just ask Sean, and he can give you an answer back. But the other Oracle, Brett Coffey, he's watching as well. So, and I'm sure he's pretty excited to be able to. You know, he would have tuned into those races. I got caught out. Unfortunately, I thought they'd be the same as last week, but unfortunately, they started at 2 a.m. in the morning. I do know one person who got up at 2 o'clock in the morning to watch what's a great day of racing. But that's a problem with North American racing. They do chop and change. It's about like our calendar. Keeping it simple helps all over the world. Like, so it's one of those big things, isn't it?
Absolutely. And if Brett's watching, you'll be able to tell us when Tactical Approach is due to actually arrive. So, no, that's. I'm sure Brett's going to be excited about that, and so will many breeders. Adding that extra choice and in the flesh. So that will be interesting to see how breeders warm to him.
It's also exciting that also said their fastest the wind's going to be in New South Wales. EL Titan's going to be in New South Wales. You've got the horses in Queensland, Classic Connection, and a couple of the other ones going to be standing there in the flesh. Plus here in Victoria, it's really starting to become that the World Gate is really starting to spread across Australia now.
Yeah, and again, breeders will have decisions to make in terms of depending upon where they place their mare, which state they get inseminated and foal down, and potentially looking for dual eligibilities with the various riches across the eastern seaboard. Naturally, Vicbred is still the preeminent trotting gate for the futurity side of things, but with first win bonuses and other opportunities in New South Wales and Queensland, their breeders have got choice, and that's a great thing.
I'll tell you, and it's funny, out of adversity, things change. I was alerted to a thing today, and it'll be a nutrient thing because this is what it actually is. But the horse will be Vic bred and New South Wales breeders eligible. I don't know which way it works, but it'll be eligible for both. Obviously, not the pure and not the blue. I think it is in New South Wales, but it'll still be eligible for both. Going to sell a horse in Queensland, and I was like, well, it can't be Q bred. Why do that? But effectively, it'll be eligible for the Sunshine Stars series, which is $50,000 as well. So smart thinking outside of that square, because in the back of my mind, when I was being told that, I was thinking, well, this can't work. You can't be eligible for all three, but it's not. But it gives it another eligibility. So, which is good thinking.
Well, you and I were chatting earlier today in preparation for the show about after we touched on the Breeders' Crowns reduction coming up, and the fact that people hadn't been paying up for the Breeders' Crown, and the fact that coming out of general revenue, HRV had been topping it up for a number of years. Clearly, people had been voting with their feet, voting with their money in terms of where they want to make their horses eligible. And we're always in a period of change, but I think when you think about what you just talked about, eligibility for sales races, eligibility for different futurity series in different states, the opportunities that are created via slot races, the opportunities that are created via nutrient sale races, APG sale races, all of those things I think are going to force change in the way that people pay up for these things and the choices that they make. The Kiwis announced recently their 3-year-old slot race, and I don't know whether they put a dollar sign next to it, but
500,000.
500,000.
Yep.
So the way that breeders, the way that owners of young horses are going to be looking to say, where can I aspirationally, to use the American term, stake my horse, get it involved in and look for the big money, is basically changing. And so you could arguably say that the Breeders' Crown model had been withering for a little bit of time, and HRV's decision, whilst everyone will be disappointed in the outcome, I think we all understand the fiscal circumstances we find ourselves in. But ultimately, I just think of my own circumstances where a filly that I had in the nutrient sale and sold a few shares when it didn't sell in the ring. And I said to the people who bought into the filly, I said, what do you want to do? And they said, definitely want to pay up for the sales race, because who knows, that's the opportunity to be on the end of a large check if you happen to be the lucky one that gets the chocolate. So everyone's aspirational, and the way that we're being aspirational, I think, is in a state of change.
Yeah, I think what you just said then, the staking, and it is almost that staking now. I think that's awesome. I had Anthony McDonald, be more than I want to think about it, probably 5 years ago. I think he came out, APG got him out to promote fractional ownership. And I took him to Karen Manning's, and it is a 3-hour drive. It took us 3 hours anyway, because we had to stop a couple of times because there was dodgy service for him. So he had to get these ones done and then re-rang. That entire trip was done staking his 2-year-olds for next season. So that was, he was working out every horse he had on his books. He had a lot of horses, but that was the entire day of what he did. I was blown away by it. It was just ridiculous what he did. And since then, Anthony's done an enormous job, because now they're buying high class horses. They're actually going to the bigger sales now and buying class horses. And it's such a big process. And it's possibly something that, I suppose the smaller trainers need to think about and think about doing, is not only going and buying a horse, but maybe looking at it and saying to people, rightio, we can do this, 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 and this with this horse. Or you buy a trotter maybe, or there's a pacing race over there as well. There's going to be these slot races coming up. This horse is a 3-year-old. Don't worry about his 2-year-old year. Let's just, and program them and plan them to get them at the right races at the right time.
That's right. I was told, just sort of segueing out to come back in, told of a trainer. I won't mention names because I only got a second hand, but this trainer is going to take a few horses up to Queensland. I think mainly Trotters, from what I could gather, because they were eligible for races up there. The first win bonus was clearly influencing that decision making. Um, so I think that we're going to continue to see it, especially as I think we said the other night. Victoria for many years was the preeminent state. We had the most prize money. We had the biggest events. Now that's turned, and that's unfortunate. But if you're in Victoria with a decent horse, pacer or trotter, you're going to have to travel. You're not just going to be wandering down the road to Melbourne to race it, but that's where your opportunities are. And whether it's the Proto Star, whether it's this new $500,000 3-year-old trot in New Zealand, whether it's you're off to Cambridge trying to win one of their slot races, the Eureka we might touch on a little later, and what goes with it. These are becoming the big ticket items. These are becoming the aspirational races. They're not in Victoria as much, but for the rest of the country, happy days.
Yeah, it makes the sport better, and we're looking across the ditch. And I've been saying this for a long time, and so I'm not the only one. We need to embrace New Zealand, and New Zealand need to embrace us as well. The Inter-Dominion, it's one of those races that we might even touch on as well after the Eureka. Where does it sit now? Because it takes up a lot of time out of a horse's campaign. You almost have to spell them at the end of it. Like it's not the sort of race you can back up 2 weeks after and go again. So, like it might have ran its race purely because of the evolution of so many of these other races going forward. Just quickly, Brett said here they arrive on farm on the 28th of August, which was about what Jake said. So, which is a week later. Brad Steele said, $500,000 3-year-old pacers, New Zealand slot, and a 3-year-old trotters, and that is on show day. So that'll be the Friday of the New Zealand Cup. So I'm going to roughly say the third. I can actually work it out. It'll be about the third Friday of that month, of what's just going to be, huge. But where that flies in the face, it'll only be 1 week after that, and the Inter-Dominion will be starting. And this is where, I don't know how a lot of these things are going to survive. Greg and Jess, we know they have staffing issues. I see Chris and Alison Elford. What an opportunity for a junior driver to learn behind Chris Elford and Josh Duggan. One of the most unheralded blokes we got in the industry, Joshy. They're looking for staff. Staff are a major issue. If these guys are going to be travelling over there, are they going to be able to get their good horses not only back, but their next lot of horses ready for an Inter-Dominion, because they're going to have their hands full. They're chasing the lucrative dollars. So, it really does change the way the whole landscape looks, I think, in racing, and how it's going to look in another year's time. It's pretty cool and also interesting.
It is. I mean, the Inter-Dominion, just while we touch on that, and I agree with everything you've said about the extra pressure that these events will put on it. We know historically that the majority of the heats, and this goes back decades, the majority of the heat runners are made up by local horses, and you end up with a smallish number of travelling horses who are probably considered good enough to make the trip to win the cash. So, but trainers will make the call, owners will make the call, and we will probably see that initially in the nominations for Inter-Dominions going forward, and we'll soon find out whether the industry can fit it in, can squeeze it in, because it's very hard work.
There is some talk it'll be going to the Queensland Carnival. That's one of the rumours that I've heard, that Queensland will nearly take ownership of it and run it through the Winter Carnival. Brad Steele's actually said here it should be run in the winter months. Don't disagree with that. But then, like, I agree. I probably agree with it, because it has been a little bit of a lull. Like, it's hard to be positive, promote all the time and things along those lines when there is not a lot of racing. But then if you're going to have your horses racing in winter, it goes back to that whole Breeders' Crown, Vic Bred, all the futurities, what everyone kept saying. It's too hard because your horses get crook, because it's too hard of a time of year to have your horses at peak fitness. So there's always that juggle. Like, are we better off having no real great racing through the winter months, let people win the races, get their horses ready for what is a booming time? I don't know the answer. I'm just throwing the ideas out there. Like, I don't disagree it should be in the winter, but I wonder whether if you went and talked to Emma and Clayton at Ballarat, Greg and Jess at Bernie Wang, where are they?
Mooneyong.
Mooneyong. I don't know why I had the wrong name then, and going from there. The Queenslanders won't care. They'll be happy with it. And if it is in Queensland, that might offset it. But at the same time, these horses have got to be fit before they go there. So it makes that whole struggle of what you do. And then, Brad's talking from New Zealand, of course, he's now over there. Kiwis are even worse. North Island's not too bad. The South Island, like the Southerners, that's, bloody impossible. They've got to get away. Plus it is so cold.
Yeah. Look, these are all, I'll argue and for the point of it and say, these are all pleasant problems to have.
Yep.
How are we fitting them in? How do we get a run? Everything you've said is true. How do you plan it out so that we get the best horses being able to compete in the various time slots? It's a programmer's nightmare, and we're competing for a limited resource, being the best of the best. But the money will talk. It's amazing how put on a good race and it'll get people out of bed.
No, absolutely. Lawrence McCormick, need these carrots to encourage people to breed too. Good on people coming up with these big value races, not totally reliant on the owner to pay. And that is exactly right. And we probably need more different ideas, because these aren't coming out of the total stake distribution fund. There might be some money being kicked in, but to make these good races, that money's coming from elsewhere. Like the slot races in Cambridge and the likes. People buy that slot. I presume the races in New Zealand are going to be similar, that there'll be, you buy your slot and then you try and get your horse afterwards. So, and they have so many fun sides to them too, if you ask me. I think, who's going to get in, who's not going to get in, and going from there. And again, we will touch on the Eureka in a minute, but it does throw up so many great things. And that trotting race in Cambridge this year was probably still one of the best fields assembled ever. Like, everyone's saying, well, if Just Believe goes, no one else is going to go. They all went for the money.
Yep, that helps when you share it around. I mean, the winner gets the lion's share, but there were some nice checks divvied up for those that were following in the placings and beyond.
Queensland Carnival, Nick, we haven't discussed this one. I wrote it down last week. It's brilliant. It's great. I just said then it's so hard. Is it too long?
I'm probably not close enough to it to offer a categoric opinion. In one way, it's not, because it's in the middle of winter when there's not a lot of feature racing. It was nice to be able to flick to the Albion Park fields and know that for a few weeks anyway, you had at least on the main feature nights, it was great race after great race. But even in the lead up, it was nice having some feature racing to take the focus, gave us all something to talk about and some races to watch, whether it be live or on replay. So I'm not going to say no. Certainly from a fan's perspective and a punting perspective, I actually quite like the fact that we had a few weeks to help break up the relative monotony of the winter program.
And if you had a horse racing and you were able to get up there, like the guys with Rocking with Attitude and those things, get up there for a couple of days, get a bit of warm weather around you, and that, it always makes it feel better as well, doesn't it?
I'm sure it does, and that the old working holiday will have been what some people would have said. Yep, let's go, let's get out of the freezing tundra of Victoria and at least get up and thaw out in Queensland. So, look, again, I'm sure that there might be some that have that view, because it is so difficult and it interrupts their routines. But from a fan's perspective and a punter's perspective, I think it's got a really good spot, and the racing was fantastic. And they really, Brad's disappeared, but the team up there have done a wonderful job over recent years, and really creating something well worth watching.
Yeah, exactly. And there is too. So maybe the carnival, maybe they should condense the carnival wording, but still have those races going in that same time, if that makes sense. Maybe have a 1 week, 8 day, if you like, carnival where it's a Queensland carnival, but still have all those lead up races with the good prize money. Because I know there was some discussions about getting crowds there all the time, and it's hard to do that when you're trying to sell a carnival. But I agree with you. I think it's great, and exactly the same thing. If you're looking for a story or someone to interview, you looked at Queensland and just seen what they were up to at the time.
Yeah, and look, I know that we talk about getting a crowd, and there's no doubt we want people on track for our big nights. But the way that racing in general and harness racing by default is consumed is that it's not the only way to get eyeballs on a race is to be there on track. It's creating something that means that at halftime in the footy, instead of going to make a cup of coffee, you go, hang on a minute, the Blacks of Fate's on in at Albion Park, and people tune in, and you get eyeballs on it, you get engagement with the sport. Hopefully that results in turnover. Maybe I'm being a little bit glass half full there, but the way that our sport is consumed, I mean, it really is I'm looking at you on my laptop. I've got my iPad down here. I've got my phone here as well. We tend to consume racing on a screen these days, and the battle is which screen are you watching? Watching Carlton versus Collingwood, or you're watching race 6 from Upper back to West? So. Do you want to talk about Carlton Collingwood? I'm a Tiger, so mate, we're just going for draft picks.
Yeah. Let's just leave it at that. I can't believe what I saw, but that's okay. It was a pretty trying. It was a different week I had last week, or end of the week, and to cap it off, sitting down with one brother-in-law is a one-eyed Collingwood man, and the rest of us are Carlton. It wasn't enjoyable, that's for sure.
Well, the rumour is that Pendlebury went up to McGovern after the end of the game and said, "Thank you very much." No, he didn't. I'm making that up. All right.
He couldn't even get. We won't go. Let's leave that. One thing I did want to do when we're still talking about futurities, I'm trying to keep us, but who cares? We just go anywhere. The Breeders' Crown. Now, this one's been alluded to me today, so I want everyone else to be aware of it as well. With the announcement last week, if you actually have a look, the 2-year-old pacing finals worth 80,000 plus, and there is a plus after the 40, the 60, and the 25,000. So the question was asked of me, what is the plus? And it's almost an approximate. What I was told is that will be the minimum. It's not the maximum. There is some chance that they'll go up. The interesting part, people are still paying up for it. They are still got money coming in now, and people are paying up for it. The other discussion point was, why are the Trotters so low and the paces are so high? That's because the pacing, that's a pool. So it's a pool of horses divided by in half. So a 2-year-old was paid up. If you're 2 and 3-year-olds, that's why the prize money's where it is. And that's the breakup of the horses. Some people will look at the Trotters and not agree with that, but I'm reasonably confident that is the truth. So the reason the Trotters are so hardly done by is because, again, people don't pay up for it. If you don't pay up for it, it can't exist. That's the way it's going to work.
I'm assuming that HRV could quite quickly and easily provide some evidence to a point to support that premise. It is stark. There's no doubt about it. But yes, that's my understanding as well, is that it's just simple maths. This is how much has come into the pool, and them's the facts. So I think it may, and again, and I stress the word may have spoken to some greater subsidisation of the various finals in the past. It also probably speaks to the fact that the semi-finals have been taken out of the Pacers, and they were part of the Pacers prize money pool. So whereas the Trotters only had heats in the Breeders' Crown. So the finals, as a proportion of the overall pot for each gate, were probably exaggerated slightly for the Trotters, whereas for the Pacers, the semi-finals probably played a role in diluting the size of the pot in the finals in the past. So I think there'll be a combination of factors. I mean, the biggest thing is the numbers are now, relatively speaking, disappointing. The industry, as we said last Wednesday, is going to make its own decisions. And one of the hardest things here is it's where do you focus? You've got so many choices. You've got APG, you've got Nutrien, you've got 3 very, very good state futurity setups on the East Coast. You've got the New Zealand size stakes, etc., which has got stronger and stronger. Spoiled for choice.
Yep, absolutely, and it is incredible. We'll leave that. The other big announcement, which I did know about last week when we were on, but I wasn't allowed to say about it, is the redwood and the redwood rejigging, and what a positive news story this is for our industry. This is talking trotters, but we're talking whatever comes out of our mouth, which is scary for both myself and Nick and everyone that's watching. Good luck to you guys. But the new look, I'm serious too, the new look Redwood Carnival. When you saw this, mate, what was your first thoughts?
My first reaction was, wow, Maryborough not having a pacing cup. And that wasn't a negative wow. That is a gutsy decision by the Maryborough Harness Racing Club. It's a strong decision. And I'll speak about that a bit more in a second, but by bolstering up Redwood Day with the Trotters Cup, making the Redwood a Group 1 race, I think they're all very positive initiatives. If we go back in time long enough, the Redwood came from almost nothing. The Trotter was almost dead. It then became a race day with a few trotting races. It then became the all trotting race day. It then became an all trotting weekend. The growth through that period was just amazing. Often nominations would well exceed the number of spots that were available. It's difficult to actually continue a level of momentum with that sort of growth. And I think it's fair to say that for a few years, while still a wonderful day, they became victims of their own success and struggled to find that next iteration of where they were trying to head. And I think this announcement, certainly for fans of the Trotter, is another step forward and will, I think, add that extra little bit of luster to what is already a fantastic day.
It's interesting you're saying that. There was 2 years where they had 3 days of racing. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Saturday was a restricted meeting that started, I reckon, before 12 o'clock, actually, but it was early. But, they were able to get some on to Sky or the TAB, but most of them were non-tab races. That was the nomination, or the power they had in the nomination. So, and going from there. We'll touch on the Pacing Cup part in a sec, but what they've done, they've taken $30,000 out of the Pacing Cup. They put $25,000 back into the Redwood to rightfully give it back Group 1 status. And they've taken the bull by the horns to do that. It's a race that they've owned, and they do own it. Dickie Lee, it was interesting, Dickie Lee, when he was in charge of the VSTA at the time, he was one of the instigators. He was sitting there with the Redwoods, Rothicas, all these Fords, all these lovers of the Trotters in that central Victorian area, that wanted to grow it, and they instigated it, and they said they'll get it. And I think there's a great story about Ian McEwen, the head steward. And Dickie Lee said to him, I think it was Dickie Lee said to him that we will have an all trotting day here at Maryborough. And he said, over my dead body. And he was still alive to see it. He was a head steward in South Australia, but they made sure they did not miss him at all. And they were able to grow that. And as you said, so by now putting it back to have 2 Group 1s. So you've got the Aldebaran Park, Group 1, Redwood Classic, the Harasta Trotters, Group 1, Trotters Derby, however you want to say it. 2 time-honoured races that are going to stand the test of time. Well done to those guys. But they didn't put the full 30 into that. They had enough. This is nearly the best one. They've made their Maryborough Trotters Cup back to a Group 3 event because the 5,000 was taken out of it. So they put the 5,000 back and put it on this day. It's never been on this day. So to honour those fast class horses, who they get will be an issue. Like, it won't be an issue. It'll be interesting just to watch. But they're going to have a $30,000 Group 3. So you've got 2 Group 1s and a Group 3. The Matchmaker Mile, I'm pretty sure, is still there. You'll have a constellation of the Redwood. It's just going to be a great day of racing.
It does go to another level. It gives them another promotional point. I haven't turned my mind to exactly where it fits into the calendar in terms of who might be there, but at a $30,000 race, you'll get probably the vast majority of the best horses going around. Though we did have the free for all on the day anyway, but and that was always a very strong race. This should go to another level, you would think. So they've really got a 3-pronged attack to on the day now.
It's actually interesting. So it will be, you're working out the dates. You said you haven't worked out the dates. So, of course, the Dominion Handicap is another race now that's come up with the Trotters, $400,000 that a lot of these horses are going to be looking at. But if Brad Steele's still watching, I think I'm right. So the Dominion Handicap is the 12th to the 15th is at New Zealand Carnival in November. And the Redwood Carnival is the 25th to the 27th. So you're going to have 2.5 weeks. They now have direct flights from Melbourne and Sydney straight into Christchurch. So that part's going to be for the horses. They're going to be able to work that part out. I think it takes a little bit of jigging. So they'll be able to race at this carnival, especially some of the 3-year-old trotters in the Derby, and still make that slot race. So, I don't know what sort of 3-year-old trotters Greg's got or Anton have got, but they could have fast class horses, bring them home, put them on the big bird, go across to New Zealand, and then come back and still be a part of our summer carnival. Like, it's bloody exciting. And it's great that the Redwood's going to be there front and centre.
Yeah, absolutely. Weather, hopefully on the improve, should make for a great day. Really nice surroundings there at Maryborough. And, I wish them all the best. So all of those things, hopefully all of these things will tie in nicely and they'll really get strong fields.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be pretty cool to go to. Don't know what else you've got, Nick. I don't know if you're aware. I've got to find the horse now. Actually, I'm in trouble. Dr. Kath McIntosh actually had her first, well, I'm going to say unofficial, official winner because it wasn't actually in her name. Where's our date? It was here at Shepparton. Oh, no, it was back in July. Bugger. I hate how you got to go back an extra day. But which she hasn't owned a lot of horses. I know that for a fact. But Gotta Have Me by Sweet Lou out of Aliente, A Better's Delight Me, bred by Woodlands. How good am I going? Didn't know that. Or Charles Joseph. I should be careful. There's a slight difference. But, yeah, Charlie was one of them. But, yeah, got her first winner. It was in the name of Luke McIntosh. But well done to a person you and I have had a hell of a lot to do with. And we would have both thought she'd had a winner before now. But she actually got her first official winner, which is a good thrill for her.
Well, that amazes me that it's her first official winner. That is quite incredible. Well done, Kath. I was actually speaking to her this morning. She didn't bother telling me that. Maybe she thought I should know. But no, well done to her. That's great.
Yep. Joe Pace is watching. Of course, his old trotter. I shouldn't say his old trotter. He's flying. Went terrific again the other night. One of James Herbertson's 3 winners on the night, and it's good to see that he's got him back. Mr. Hooper, Mr. Paulie. He even says hello. He's a good man, Joe.
He is, absolutely.
You know, he's outside having one of these, though. You know that, don't you? That's what he's doing. He gets away from the wife and he turns us on.
That's well, as long as we're turning somebody on, Paul, that's all that matters.
I'm leaving that alone. Yes, mate. Which one do you want to go now?
Well, everyone's favourite trotter, Just Believe. We're really going to take this back to a G rating this show once again. He's off to the trials tomorrow at Melton. Trial number 10. Powder Keg and Sleepy are going to need to have a powder keg set under them and not be asleep when Just Believe wanders up outside them. So that's trial number 10 tomorrow. So great to see that the champ is back. And as I'm just looking
I'm
through
trying.
the rest of the trials to see if there's anything of great note. Someone will tell me if I've missed anything.
John Justice, the new trainer at Powder Keg. That's where I was feverishly looking for, because
Yep.
yeah, so you can actually see him there. Son of Mac is in the race afterwards, but yeah, Rocking with Styles. Now that is actually Rocking with Sierra, Rocking with Dancing. Oh man, what's that filly's name? What's Lucy's name? Get me out of trouble. Rocking with Attitude. Rocking with Style is actually Rocking with Attitude's full brother. So by your sire, Dichotomy sire. Quick, help me out again, Nick. You got to help me out at least.
Baron Eagle.
Thank you very, very much. So it's trialing down to qualify there as well. So the good horses are starting to step out, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nice 2-year-old Trotters, Sam Nien, one for again for John Justice, for Shrew Me Thompson, who's always got the Nien horses. A Bolstead is having a trial, and Chris Lang's got Farouk, FARROKH. I think that's Farouk, isn't it? How am I going?
Yep.
So it's by the best Madrick, who has been available here for quite some time, but has not had too many mares go to him. In fact, there's only 7 live foals by the best Madrick in this country. 4 of them have started, and guess what? 4 of them have won. So the pressure's on Chris Lang, who's been known to, train a trotter occasionally, to see whether or not he can keep that run going for the best Madrick, of course, standing at Yabby Dam.
We don't do any of these. Little fun fact for you: Orlando Vici is also 100% at horses foals to the races. Horses to the races have won. So I think he's at something like 80% of his foals have made the races. 100% of those have won. Guess who?
Really?
Guess who bought that stack up? Orlando Vici, like of course the sire of Just Believe. Guess who made him 100%? Chris Lang.
There you go.
It was a horse just recently. It won a Thursday night meeting at Melton. I could probably go back and find it, but yeah, it was just one of those random ones that came up.
Yeah.
And he's also had two pacing winners.
Just looking at it here, 40 live foals, 26 starters, 26 winners, average earnings per starter. Well, Just Believe blows it out a little bit. 118,000 a starter.
So what'd you say? 40 foals, 26 races.
40 foals. Yep, that's right. So, and of that,
there's 10 2-year-olds, I think.
Yeah, there's only a handful in the last few years, as I look here on harness.org.au. So, that's pretty amazing.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. But the other fun fact of it is Chris Lang was the one that bought up the last one. So yeah, it's just when you're saying that, I was thinking, oh, what's the irony of this? Like this is actually pretty cool. We've actually got Timmy Garrett. I've got a couple of comments I've got to get back to because Brad Steele and Joe Pace are having a little conversation between us. But Tim Garrett has actually said that the postmaster is in trial. Oh, something went wrong then. I've hit the wrong button. Trial 8. The postmaster is for Andy Gaff. I was just going to look up its breeding. There, it's a 2-year-old down to qualify. So why won't that bring that up for me? Brought up the other ones. Oh, because it hasn't qualified. Oh, rookie mistake. Nick, bear with me. I will get this horse to come up. I can't because I can't copy it. Can't copy and paste it. So anyway, good luck, Tim. I don't know the horse, but we'll have to have a look at that in a second. I'll type it in a different way and go from there. But it's good to see big field. A lot of young horses too, Nick, which is really cool actually with those trotters.
Yeah, whilst we're using Chris Lang's name in vain, trial 3 he has Ruby's Dream, an unraced filly by Tactical Landing. So a Richard, like the late Richard Matthews bred, and Pauline Matthews owned out of Dream Interest. So a daughter of Dream Vacation, daughter of Maori Moon. So
what a family! What a family when you go back into it, isn't it?
Yep.
He's by Poster Boy out of Melita Bromac. So good luck to him tomorrow. Poster Boy's doing a great job.
Yep. And Coltrane is having its trialling. It's a Father Patrick out of Aldebaran Eve who won 9 for the Brosnans. Terry Reid owned Yabby Dam Farms bred again. So a Father Patrick out of Aldebaran Eve, who was a more than handy horse on the racetrack. So so some interesting trials to keep an eye on tomorrow.
I'm sure there'll be plenty of publicity through HRV on how Just Believe does go, but I imagine he'd be just going out just to get a bit of a workaround, I'd say. So, Nick, you forgot this one because I'm sure this is a horse. Race trial 12, number 3, Turnbridge. Do you know Turnbridge's stable name?
Tunbridge. I should know. Go on.
Paul.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a horse. I am positive that that's a horse, and because myself and Jeffs quite often have a joke about it. So yeah.
Well, it's a half to dichotomy. It's out of Stone Till Dawn, who one of Paul Graydon's breed.
Exactly what I was going to say. That might be where the Paul comes from.
Yes, that's Jess is probably 4 cocktails in at this stage and might not be watching, but if she is, I'm sure she'll tell us.
I will tell her that you said that, not me. So that's okay. I'm okay with that one. One
other I wanted to pick up. It's one in trial number 1. It's how old is it? It's a 6-year-old, unraced 6-year-old that Michelle Wicks owns, bred and trains by Sky Valley out of the Zuma mare Ship Scar. So
yes. Raced by Paul Shipway. Ship Scar, I reckon it was.
Yeah, so an interesting Sky Valley Zuma, of course, Zuma a son of Styx and has signed a number of winners and out of a Yentl's Image mare, out of a Mary's Idol mare. So a bit of a local flavour to Spanish Rosado. Good luck to them. 6-year-old hasn't had a race, so hopefully it goes well.
Zuma, Peter Hornsby?
Yes.
Yep,
I think so.
Yep, pretty happy with that too. Patrick Tompkinson, hello to you. Anyone that's watching, any questions? Because this show is random. We've got a few other things. Don't know if we got onto it last week. Duncan McPherson ended up with 4 winners in 24 hours, but in 3 different continents. It's a pretty amazing little feat. For a person who puts a lot of money in it, but he's not an overly large farm, if you like. He doesn't have the numbers of CAF and a few of the Pat and a few of the other farms. He has a good number of horses. It's an amazing effort, isn't it?
Yeah, his investment across North America, Europe, and naturally here in Australia, especially, has been huge, and he's done well over the years with his winners from time to time in countries all over the world. He must have been absolutely stoked when he had to have such a big few days. Says a lot for his international brand, Aldebaran, and I'm sure everyone would be thrilled that he gets that success because he's just single-minded in his desire to take trotting forward, whether it's here in Australia, in New Zealand, but playing a part of it over in, especially in Europe, with his connection with Mindhammer Stud. And he's a great man, and he deserves every bit of success.
No, he did indeed. And on that, like the winner in Australia was in Queensland on a Tuesday. It was actually a good race. He actually ended up with 2, but that's the part. It's in Australia, Australasia, like it's spreading. It wasn't a Victorian winner. Tuesdays they'd be at Shepparton, but it wasn't a Tuesday winner. it was in Queensland. So that part I actually enjoyed too. We've also had Mari Time come back. They've got to add another horse come back as well. So it's pretty exciting, everything that is going on. Harassed the Trotters, sending Brad Steele. Will possibly be still watching him, and I'm not even going to worry about him and Joe Pace's conversation. They've been just going at it side by side. But it's been reported today, but it was, I think I mentioned it about 3 weeks ago, Harassed the Trotters is going to have 5 horses campaigning in New Zealand at a minimum, coming up very, very shortly. Probably a little bit of a sad part for Australia in a way, because we're going to lose those horses, but exciting for New Zealand. Most of those horses are going to be domiciled on the North Island, I believe. So that's good for North Island racing as well, to try and bolster those numbers. And what a change of the tide, Nick. Generally, they're coming from New Zealand to Australia in droves. Here's 5 horses going on the return trip and not coming back. They've got a one-way ticket.
Well, I mean, it's understandable, isn't it? I mean, with the reductions in prize money in Victoria, it is going to necessitate people thinking outside the borders of Victoria. We haven't had to do that substantially in years gone by. We do at the moment. We understand where we're at. And whilst people certainly won't abandon Victoria, it is going to force people to make economic decisions to say, where am I best to place my horses? Now, the positive side effect of that is that instead of our money disappearing into other jurisdictions, we might actually be an opportunity here to actually get net money back into our Victorian harness racing economy, as basically people say, well, we're going to go and take your good prize money and we'll bring it back to Victoria. So they're the swings and roundabouts, and I'm sure that that's not going to be the only decision that gets taken, where people, whether temporarily or permanently, send some of their horses interstate overseas to New Zealand, because that's where they're their best chance of earning a dollar.
Yep, absolutely. And he's not sending Call Me the Breeze or any of those horses, but he is sending some very nice horses, but he's not sending his stars. It's not like he's going to relocate the whole farm. It's a smart business decision. It's well and truly worthy of news, but it is interesting. He's already raced horses there. The one thing about it is he's got 2 horses over there, I think, currently. He might have 3. So it's not anything new, but he's going to send 5 now. Whether that develops to more, I don't know. I asked him about the slot race. He doesn't believe he's at the minute got a 3-year-old probably good enough. And that, I think that would be the one thing with that 3-year-old trot race over there, how many they get across there is probably where people assess their horses' ability right at the period of time in November, and where they think they're actually at. So it might end up being a New Zealand only slot race. You don't know.
Yeah, well, let's take this back to Maryborough Redwood Day, the Victoria Derby. What did we say, about 2 to 3 weeks out? Again, I think common sense tells us that the timing of those 2 races need to work together, because the Victoria Derby is going to be, I would have thought, a place where a slot holder in New Zealand would be looking to say, well, you win the Vic Derby, we'll have you over here. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Every chance that, whilst the Vic Derby in itself is a wonderful race, it's clearly, in my mind, going to be a significant lead-up race to that. And probably in September, the Vicbred 3-year-old final is probably going to be another potential source of slot holders sourcing potential runners. So that's where how everyone's going to have to look at it. You got a 3-year-old trotter. You're probably looking to clear the diary for that second week in November, because you're going to be wanting to pop across the ditch just quietly if you've got a decent horse.
Well, it's funny. Ken Hyde's watching. Kevin Hoy, hello to you, Kev. Of course, gets around, he helps out at Melton and a few other places all the time. Jason Lee's watching as well. They are probably people that are really sitting up at the minute. They might be trying to work out their New Zealand accent as well when there's a $500,000 race, because I'm sure someone possibly has made contact with them.
Well, if not, trying to find their passport. So, it's... don't
leave it late.
No. No. Look, this again is just this constant restructuring of the sport, where the riches are at a certain time. If there's going to be a $500,000 3-year-old trot in the second week of November, then you've got a decent 3-year-old trotter. I don't know. For most of us, that's going to be where you're going to be going, well, that's where I want to be. And how am I going to get there? It's probably winning the Vic Bred. It's probably winning the Victoria Derby. That's where, and because maybe there'll be crops of 3-year-old trotters in New Zealand that'll be that strong that they'll have 10 of them that they don't want to choose any of ours. But I don't see that happening. Even if they're best, they've got a good 3 or 4. We've seen over the last year or two that our juveniles are as good as theirs. They're going to be sourcing good juvenile trotters to come across. So it's going to mean that, honestly, the richest person in Victoria is going to be your and my travel agent as we, float across the ditch on a regular basis. At least you get a tax deduction running your business. I'm not sure about me.
I don't know either. Kiang Zahara, of course, is a filly I was talking to with Jason and those. And you're right. The Kiwi horses are very, very good as well. I can't think of the name of the Williamson's horse. He's actually by Volstead. It's just Empire City. Empire City is another horse, Paramount Kiwi. So Paramount Kiwi, here's one for you. Paramount Kiwi, they were inquiring to the Breeders' Crown when that was going to be on and everything else like that. Matty White, small table on the trainer stable on the North Island. All of a sudden, you know what they're doing. They're going to play, unless they come for the Derby. They might come across a horse like him. They might come across for the Derby.
Well, again, it's going to come down to what are you going to have to do to catch the eyes of the selectors and, or not the selectors, but the slot holders. Sorry, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Will that mean that? I mean, we've always had Kiwis that have wandered across to win the Trotters Derby. Maybe they'll say, no, we'll stay home and we don't want to travel. But it may even be part of that build-up that people say, no, this is one way to get our horse in. The first few slots are gone. How are we going to impress a slot holder? How are we going to get a run in that $500,000 race? You may well find that maybe the best 2 or 3 don't come for the Victoria Trotters Derby, but if you're that 4th, 5th, 6th horse and slot holders are just holding back, waiting to see who's the best, maybe, the Vic Trotters Derby is going to be one of the key tests. Maybe I'm kidding myself, but we don't know. This is all some of the great stuff that we're going to find out, aren't we?
But you forget one thing, I reckon, Nick, too, because this is what I say back to the Redwood Carnival. All of a sudden, all the eyes, and especially if you're a trotting person, like I got no doubt Jason and Margaret probably say, if we're going to invite to the slot, like the easiest way, let's give her a soft run, 3 weeks out somewhere, put her on the plane, take her across. But this is a time-honoured Victorian Derby. Like the prize money might not be able to match the slot race, but the historics, you want that on your mantelpiece. You know, one of the greatest scenes I ever saw, I can't think of the name, you'll be able to tell me, but Rossi Sugars, Illawong, was it Moonshine? When she won, Ross Sugars could hardly walk. He beat the Olympic Games 100-metre sprint. They were finished across the line. Rossi Sugars went past him. He threw the cane at him as he went past him. He was so happy. It meant so much to them to win on that occasion, you know. And I'll say, and I know Greg said it, it is still one of the best moments both those guys have had, not only for family, but the achievement as well, and winning a time-honoured race.
Well, here's one thing. Maryborough Harness Racing Club. Don't know how much a slot holder spot is for this $500,000 race in New Zealand.
You're thinking now.
Maryborough Harness Racing Club, go and become a slot owner and basically say, you want a slot. The winner of the Victoria Trotters Derby gets our slot for the $500,000 trot. There you go. Maryborough, off you go. Get going.
Brad Steele's sitting back. He's loving this. He's like, these two blokes aren't going too bad here. We're getting a bit of a plug. Maryborough getting a plug, and we're going from there. So, I actually don't mind that one at all. I don't know if you know. Do you know Blair Orange at all?
I know who he is, but I've never met him, though.
He's a young bloke, had his first drive. I'm going to get in trouble. I think his mum's name is Nicole, but I could have that wrong. but had his first drive in a race for Barry Purdon and Scott Phelan, and got the chockies the other day at New Zealand. I just think it's a great story. He's a young guy. Blair's been making sure he does the hard yards everywhere, and he came out and got his first winner. It was just cool to see. I reckon it's a nice little one as well.
Very much so.
Timmy Garrett says, great call. The problem is, Tim, we talk that much. We're not sure what the great call was. I think he's talking about the New Zealand. I think he's talking about the New Zealand slot. But
don't worry, we'll take it.
We'll go from there. Rightio. The Eureka. One race we didn't touch on last week when we had all these technical issues, and thankfully, touch wood, we seem to be getting through. No worries at all. Firstly, the bow tied run on the weekend. Fighter Command got the job done for the all-conquering, and I think we can say that Lara J Farm, the job that they're doing right at the minute, it was a pretty dominant win. One, I want to know your thoughts on it. The second part of my question, though, Nick, I'll give you a bit of think time to think about it. Is it wrong that a Tassie race has been won by a Victorian trained horse to get into a year?
No, it's not wrong, because they set the criteria that you need to be Tas bred. So therefore, in doing that, there was always the prospect that the horse would, or the winner or any runner would not be trained in Tasmania. So if the Tasmanian people want to change that, then that's a matter for them. So it's not wrong, because that's the way the rules were written. So and if your horse is good enough, so will he represent Tasmania as as you might say, fully fledged? Is that where the owners and the horse are trained? No, but he's still going to be Tassie's rep. And I'll tell you right now, I reckon he's a chance. I reckon he's a hell of a chance. And so what that says a bit about Tassie breeding. It says a bit about it gives them something to be excited about. His mother, Spitfire Rose, while she raced around the country, she did a fair bit of racing in Tasmania. So there is certainly a good Tasmanian connection there. I think, look, Fighter Command, and again, I think people know I've got horses with Greg and Jess. I've got to see Fighter Command a couple of times in the flesh, and the most recent time was at Cranbourne when my mare Aureus ran against him, and they equalled the track record, and to put that in perspective, Leap to Fame running an extra half a lap in the Cup went the same mile rate, and I said to Greg, do you reckon he could have gone another half a lap at that speed? And Greg said, yep. And he is a massive individual. He's got a stride that is just, he doesn't look as though he's going fast. His strides are enormous. The biggest thing that's going to hold him back in the Eureka is his lack of ring craft, and the fact that he hasn't done hasn't done really any racing against the horses of the calibre he's up against. But he's such, I'm going to go out on a ledge here, and Greg and Jess will probably clip me over the ear for saying it, but if he doesn't win the Eureka this year, and he has another 12 months of, continued development, I say he wins the Eureka next year, and I think he has the potential to be in the top few horses in the land as a 5 and 6 year old if he continues where he's going. I think he's very special.
I agree about the ring craft. The interesting part is, and I'll throw the field up here now. So this is the 8 that are confirmed. You've got Never Ending, West Australian horse. Hasn't been across here to the eastern seaboard. Is an exceptional horse, but Frankie Ferocious, possibly hasn't been at his high peak form. I Keep Smiling, she's a mare. We saw what the mares did last year, and she's an exceptional mare. She's got a 149 next to her name, so she could do anything on that night. Three Finkers, another 3-year-old, raced purely in Queensland. He's a similar sort of horse, so it might be the right year. The Lost Storm, of course, who has got a few people scratching their heads, I think, on his last run. It might have, it might be the right year to have that immature horse, if that makes sense. You've been given a text message that you're not going to repeat, but it might be the right time to have this horse coming along as he is.
Absolutely, and he's a hell of an individual. Typical, always be Mickey, big, strong fellow. More of a thoroughbred size rather than a standard bred size, and I think that 8 out of 10 standard breds of his size would struggle to get out of their own way. But for him, he just makes it work. So, yeah, absolutely. Maybe this year is the year for him to step up. We'll find out. Still 2 slots to fill. Adam Hamilton's been spruiking Bay of Biscay as a potential appointee for one of the last 2 slots. I'm sure there are other owners of horses right on the edge that are busy ringing around and spruiking their wares. So who gets the last 2 slots will be interesting. But Bay of Biscay's second in the Derby the other week was enough to get eyebrows raised, I think.
Yeah, Don Hugo, it's good to see Singo picked his. I think he sort of got a little bit complacent last year and then all of a sudden realised he needed to get a horse. I think he took Captain Hammerhead from memory. It ended up being a nice enough choice, but he's actually already secured his. Brittany Graham is actually watching, and the build-up to it is going to be outstanding. It is a different year this year because we don't have that spruik horse of Leap to Fame. There's been a couple drop by the wayside, so there isn't that massive draw card. So it'll be interesting to see how it does play out and how the marketing and the promotion of it going forward works.
Yeah, well, as you can say here, I'm all in on Fighter Command. So I reckon we're going to look back and say there's a really there's the next top liner. As I say, may well find my horses tied up at the front gate at Greg and Jess's tomorrow with a message saying, come and get them if you're going to make such outlandish statements. But anyway, that's the way it is.
We can put we'll put the Lara J hat on. Don't worry about that. We can go all of. We've still got to do something with this. You know that, don't you? I've got to fix up my hat wall, but we've got to do something with that. Anyway, Alex Hurley said there, surely it stimulates their sales opportunities, and I think it does, especially with the Trotters, with a lot of these slot races being announced. And I think one thing I think maybe the uncertainty, if you like, right at the minute, by the time February comes around, there might be some really defining races. Like we're already going to have those slots in New Zealand come across. You never know what other people start thinking about. Lesser prize money slot races, maybe $100,000 slot race that'll come around every year, which costs you $1,000 to get involved. Sorry, $10,000 to get involved in. Things along those lines. We don't know how it will work, but I definitely think a lot of these questions are outstanding for our industry.
They are, and look, that's a good point. I mean, I think there's 2 parts to that. The first is, can you oversaturate the market with slot races? Possibly, maybe not. The other thing is, yes, does it always need to be for massive money? And might there be, I don't know, maybe there's 10 clubs in Victoria that all want to get together and have their own slot race for mares. We didn't come back to the Maryborough decision on the Pacing Cup.
It's actually good. It's a good segue because I'm gonna I've got another one to throw at you when you finish. So I'll let you.
I'll offer possibly an unpopular opinion. We've got too many country pacing cups that try to be all things to, I don't know that it works. The fact that Maryborough have said, and their Pacing Cup was always a very good race, don't get me wrong, but putting their money in, we're going to make our major race something different. I'm waiting for other clubs to say, no, we're going to make our cup for mares. We're going to, and here they've said we're going to make our major cup for the Trotters. Again, we're in tight times and clubs are struggling, but if clubs are looking for a different way of doing things, maybe it is a number of clubs coming together to create a slot race. Maybe it's creating a different element for your cup. So I think what Maryborough has done will mean that other clubs will have a real good think about what they're putting out there. A lot of them won't change, and that's great but at least having a think about it, I think, will be important. How can they create an event so that they can have a major day for their community? Maybe it is, I'll call it, the time-honoured and old-fashioned cup. Maybe it's another way, but I know I'll pause there.
No, you're right. Alex Hurley has actually said she meant for the Tassie sales, and she's spot on. And they are on Australia Day. Of course, I've got a Nutrient hat. I haven't got it. It's over there somewhere. But it is Australia Day, and she's spot on. Will it stimulate horses being purchased for the bow tide? And that is exactly what it could do, because you can go there, buy a horse, and they are eligible for the bow tide. Every horse sold at those sales are eligible for the bow tide, except there was a Queenslander this year. But I think if they're Tassie bred, that's it. They're eligible. So, yep. And, good sale this year. I think the top 3 sailors, one of which was an Always Be Mickey, were $30,000 each. So it's not a cheap sale by any stretch, but there's quality horses there, and they go terrific. All right. Hamilton have already done a short distance cup, and I think it's capped at 100. Now 100 rater. It's not 120. So it's over the mile. So years ago, and people say you can't break tradition. So years ago, it was the Kilmore Cup. The next week was the Maryborough Cup. Then you went to the Swan Hill Cup. All of those were then lead-ups to the Summer Carnival. They were a way of actually getting started and going from there. Now all those time slots are moved. The Maryborough Cup is now gone. If you'd have gone back when I was 16 years of age, that's a long time ago, and said there would be no Maryborough Cup, I can remember people lining the parade ring at Maryborough on Cup Day. It was just, the Sunday. So the Kilmore Cup was a Sunday after Cox Plate. So you're still in that spring carnival, and everyone went there. It's gone. And I think hats off to them. I think they've done an awesome job. They already think it's something different. Every year we go Bendigo Pacing Cup, 2,700 metre race. Shepparton Pacing Cup, 2,700 metre race. Ballarat Pacing Cup, I think, is a 2-mile event. Then we go 2 weeks into the Hunter Cup. We actually have a week in between. And that's part of this summer carnival and how it all looks. You've also got the Cobram Cup on the Sunday after Bendigo. So the first Saturday, these are all on a Saturday night. You have the Cobram Pacing Cup, which is an up to 100 rater as well. Same thing, over the same distance, that 3/4 range, not the real long, but the next one back, all the same races. Bendigo, the first weekend in January. We have the Aldebaran Park Murray Mile. Pretty sure we have the home field, and if we don't, I'm going to move the home field there as well, over a mile. Test of speed. These horses get on the world stage. People all over the world, Duncan keeps saying it, people are all on the world are watching these races to see how fast they can go, especially if you can get a 38-degree night without a stitch of wind. They could do anything around Bendigo, how fast it is. Why don't we do the same for the Bendigo Pacing Cup? Put a 3-year-old on the same night as well and call it the Night of Speed. Start off our huge, what will end up being our summer carnival, going from there. But picture a horse like Leap to Fame probably wouldn't come to it because he probably says, I don't want to go 150 this early in my preparation. But, a horse, say a Captain Hammerhead was a name that just popped up before, or Don Hugo or one of those. They want a Miracle Mile spot. They say, well, hang on. Let's have a throw at the stumps. Let's see if we can break, what's his name, Ride High's track record, 149 around Bendigo. Put ourselves up in lights. What's to say a pacer can't go on the world stage? You actually half like this, the way you're smirking. It's one I've been banging on. I've tried to tell the guys at Bendigo. I don't know who to talk to, but I just think it's something different, and it doesn't take away from the start of the year. It just starts it off differently, and I think with a bang.
They're all good ideas. I'll give you another one. Instead of having a traditional cup race in any given country club, run a slot race and get local businesses to buy a slot. Get the local businesses to bring their people out to the racetrack. Now, I know that this is easier said than done, but you want people to the track. You want to create an event. You want to create an opportunity for local businesses to get their business up in front of the local community. Subsidise some slots out of the money that you would have put into it. They won't care whether it's open class paces, open class trotters, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds. all of a sudden you've got you potentially got your community involved and everyone's coming along. I'm sure that there's reasons why that wouldn't work, but maybe that's the way that the Upper Conductor West Cup is run because they've gone and done it that way. I think all of these righties.
You'll get splitters up at Conductor or West. You couldn't mention a club, could you? You're like, I ain't getting myself in the trouble here.
No, because I want. What are we doing? I suppose ultimately we're saying Maryborough have done something different. Maryborough have broken with tradition and made a difficult decision. And I've got no doubt that some people would have gotten their ear and said, don't like your decision. And that's okay as well, because it's an opinion game.
Yep.
What are we trying to say here to the clubs? Desperate times, desperate measures. What can we do differently? Is your club attracting a big crowd for its cup by doing things the way you've done it in the past? If you are, then if it's not broken, don't change it, don't fix it. But grab one of these ideas. Perhaps maybe there's another idea out there, but I think let's look for other ways to generate prize money opportunities that don't come from the traditional source, because the traditional source at the current moment, if it ain't broken, it's not overly healthy.
No, and I will say, I've got three things. We've got Brett Coffey. I don't know if that's who you got the text message from before or not, but I'll get to him. No one's breaking that Bendigo track record, is what he's saying. It's belittled held that track record for a little while, Brett Coffey. Don't you worry about it. We had a 52, so they could actually watch it. If the Toby McKinnon's watch, we've got plenty. I've got to just give Alex Hurley here a clip behind the ears, or curls, as she was known. The Maryborough Cup would have been chariots when you were 16, Paul. That's a pretty ordinary comment. I did get it there. Trotters slot race on Redwood Day. Yeah, definitely could work. The only thing with that, Joe, they've actually put their Trotters Cup, so I suppose I'll wait and see how that works. But that could be the next option and go from there.
That's it. Turn the Trotters Cup into a slot race. I don't know. And I think maybe it's not the first thing that they do, but that's where I encourage the clubs to think outside the square. Should be giving Warragul a pat on the back for doing that with their cup. I'm sure you've talked about that. So we remiss not to mention Warragul and the fact that they ran a very different cup and were cruelled by circumstances, but by geez, the heats of their cup were incredibly well contested, and I'll be interested to see whether they persevere with it. They said, let's share the love, let's create something different.
And if anyone's not aware, what ended up happening, there was one horse that ended up being odds-on favourite simply because of the ratings, because I think he won 4, because unfortunately the
race got cancelled, and then they had to run it again, and I think a lot of the horses that were eligible just weren't up and about when it was come back, and so the race itself ended up with a short-priced favourite. That may have occurred anyway, but that can occur with an open class cup too.
It was a bad look. If you looked at it and you just saw that, you'd say, oh, why? I think at the time the horse was like an 80 rater and the rest were sort of 60 raters. But it was just unfortunate that there was a crash. They had to call the race off. And then by the time they'd reprogrammed it, they'd had that issue. You're getting cheeky texts. I can see the smoke.
Oh, yeah, I'm confident here. Don't worry about
that. Timmy Garrett, years ago at Cranbourne, I probably should have read this first. I used my company to buy a race day and then had my suppliers each take a race and gave them a table of 10 in the committee room. Worked really, really well. Exactly. And you could do that even on your cup days. There's nothing to say you can't do those on your cup days. And that the New Zealand, like we say, you said there before, anyone thinks it's not broken and the likes. Back to the New Zealand Cup, Brad Steele, he's just getting too many free plugs today. But it's still always been one of those time-honoured races. But they've reinvigorated it and reconfigured how this race meeting would look. And there's some rumour there's still more changes to come to that. But they've introduced 2 slot races to that carnival. They've upped the ante on their prize money. No one would ever have questioned it. They didn't have to do anything to it. So if you're sitting back and you're saying your cup is a good cup, we're going to keep it, yeah, maybe pull your head out of the doona and just have a little bit of a look around. There is definitely, if you're moving forward, you're doing something. I think that's one of the great things about it.
Human nature is such that if you don't refresh what you're doing, people, whether you like it, become maybe bored is too strong a term, but ambivalent. And yes, you have something that's great. It'll only be great for a couple of years, and you've got to find the next innovation. That's the battle for any. Well, it's not just racing administrators; it's sports administrators. It's keeping things fresh and interesting, and keeping people's interest is the battle. So these sort of things in New Zealand will do that, I would think.
I'll do my bit for Bendigo here. We could actually sponsor the Bendigo Pacing Cup as well, which I'm not sure who the sponsor is. I'll get into trouble there. I know Aldebaran Park sponsor the Murray Mile. It could become the Ride High 149 Bendigo Pacing Cup, and see if anyone can break it. Just give them a little gentle reminder. I'm sure Brett would be willing to fork out $100,000 to put it well and truly up in the prize money.
Brett is reaching for the checkbook as we speak. There's no doubt about it.
Going from there. I don't have a lot else going forward at all. I don't think I have. I don't know if I've forgotten anything. Have you got anything else?
No, we've gone for an hour and a half, so I'm just about ready to pass out.
You had a pasta before you started. I went for a run and haven't eaten anything since.
That's it.
All right, mate.
Meeting time at the zoo now.
Thank you. We are going to continue to do these. I am also going to get, I've forgotten his bloody name. I'm going to be in all sorts. Daniel Hibbard back on as well. I'm going to continue to change them up, especially now that I got it working and found the issue. I do really appreciate it. We try to keep on a little bit of a structure, but it's also, we've got to promote this game. We've got to have a bit of fun with it. Brett Coffey said to me there one time, it was a dicey thing he said, but he said, imagine if you could film behind the scenes what goes on with sales preps and that, and not anything untoward. It's actually the fun that people have, and that's what I want to do, and I really appreciate you doing that for me, mate, because we do get loose. We can be serious, but we also get loose and have some random conversations as well.
Well, as long as we're turning people on, as long as people are turning us on and watching, then that's all that matters.
I couldn't remember what it was you said, and then you still just come up with it. Mate, thank you. Really do appreciate it.
Good on you, mate. See you soon.
I won't be back next week. You won't see nothing on Campbell's Comments next week except for English. So, yeah. But thank you very much, mate.
Have a great trip.